Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth.
I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change.
We do not care whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch mice.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be.
To those waiting with bated breath for that favorite media catchphrase, the U-turn, I have only one thing to say. U-turn if you want to. The ladies not for turning.
People will sit up and take notice of you if you will sit up and take notice of what makes them sit up and take notice. Is a quote from Harry Gordon Selfridge, the founder of Selfridges department store in London and one of the most successful retailers in history. I thought this was a relevant quote for our guest today, someone who is leading one of the largest retailers. Today our guest is Ian Bailey, Managing Director of Kmart Group, which comprises Kmart and Target, operating over 450 stores across Australia and New Zealand, employing nearly 50,000 team members and with revenues of almost $10 billion. Prior to his appointment in 2018, Ian held various roles at Kmart Australia, including Managing Director, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer, following his earlier career in the UK and his entry into retail with Officeworks. Hello and welcome to another episode of No Limitations, a show where we speak to elite world-class performing men and women and unlock the secrets and influences that have shaped their destinies and that you could apply to your own life. For our first-time listeners from all over the world, please don't forget to follow on your preferred podcast platform and share with your friends and colleagues. And for our listeners in Fiji, Singapore and Vietnam, a big hello. I am your host, Greg Robinson, Managing Partner of Blenheim Partners, board and executive search firm. Ian takes us through the evolution of Kmart, from a traditional discount store to embracing an innovative, modern, hybrid retail model, and in so becoming one of the most well-known and trusted brands. He shares with us the care and attention it takes to put the customer at the forefront of their mission, to remove unnecessary costs and give back, as well as the next retail revolution in a digital world and potential growth possibilities in the international market. So sit back and enjoy. Innovation, a necessity, not an option. Ian, welcome to the show. How does one go from studying civil engineering at university to become a chief executive officer of a top retailer?
Yeah, well, I don't know. How does it happen? One thing's for sure, when I left school, I wasn't thinking this was going to be my future life. But I guess what you do is you accumulate knowledge and experiences, and I had quite a mixed career on the way through, and I accumulated a lot of I say different experiences, and then I found my way into retail, and yeah, it felt like home. So I really enjoyed it when I got there, and I've just applied myself to that ever since, and was fortunate enough to get into the position that I've now got to, and I absolutely loved the role, and I've had an incredible time getting to this position. So
Ian, do you mind sharing, just for the audience benefit, the scale of the operation of Kmart?
Yeah, so we're actually close to 10 billion in terms of annual revenue. If you look at our business through the lens of a full year's trading without any COVID impacts, it's closer to a $10 billion number, which is what we're at. So quite sizable. We've got like 400 plus stores. We have two brands in terms of Kmart and Target within Australia. Kmart's also in New Zealand. We also have some businesses outside of Australia and New Zealand, which are more emerging. So they're new businesses we've just kicked off. We've got about 1,000 people in Asia, which not everyone would realise. We have tech resources in Bangalore, as well as a lot of sourcing folk throughout China, Bangladesh, Indonesia, India, and Vietnam. So lots of capability throughout those countries, and about 50,000 people in Australia and New Zealand. Of course, the vast majority of those are in our stores.
What makes a top retailer?
Yeah, it's a crowded market, isn't it? I mean, you've got a lot of choice as a customer. I mean, whether it's online or in store. If you think about your local shopping mall, there's no shortage of places that you can go visit.
Yep.
So you need to mean something to your customer. And the way we've always thought about it is, when someone gets out of bed in the morning and says, you know what, I need or I want that, we want them to think of us first. So to do that, we need to be better at what we offer than our competitors do. So in the case of Kmart, we really anchored our business on the lowest price, and we said we're going to win by being lower price than everybody else. And over time, we built a stronger and stronger business model that can deliver on that customer proposition to our end consumers, which is critical, but at the same time also can generate an adequate return to our shareholders.
What are we going into at the moment, Ian? It's going to be some tough times ahead, looks like.
Yeah. Well, if any listeners have got the answer to that question, we'd be very happy to hear from them. I think we're all trying to figure it out, aren't we, at the moment? Because you've almost got this strange combination. We've got customers that up until this point are still shopping with great vigor and energy. And you would have seen through the last reporting season, lots of retailers actually pushed out very good numbers.
Yeah.
And probably to the surprise of a lot of the market commentators who are out there. I think equally we know that, we've had inflation for some time. We've got interest rates which are on the rise, continuing to rise. We've got a lot of fixed rate mortgages which are going to roll off in the not too distant future. And it feels like there's a tipping point that's going to come.
Yep.
Now, when is that tipping point? It seems like February was one of the months that was being called out as a potential. May is another one that's being called out, but it feels like it's imminent. So I think we're all trying to stay really nimble and balanced. You think about a tennis player waiting to return serve. They're up on their toes and they're active, but they're not sort of leaping in one direction or another. It feels like that's what we're all trying to figure out at the moment, so that we can adapt quickly when and if that change does come. Yeah,
look, you're the lead indicator in the market for the economy, right? Being a retailer, and I just wanted to get your perspective of the broader economy, as you highlighted. I know everyone's trying to anticipate, but you've got to plan 12, 24 months ahead. No doubt, living in Australia is getting more and more expensive, particularly in the major cities. The cost of capital is going up significantly. We are going to have more interest rates. We're already starting to see, delivery, for example, home delivery starting to come off. That's starting to hit the hip pocket. So I guess, maybe from your perspective, are we going to start seeing a change in the sales mix? Are we going to see different buyers or different people come to your stores? What are you anticipating?
Yeah, I think first of all, for any business, when you go into a different environment, there's almost a little bit of fear that comes along because there's change. But we would look at it through the lens of opportunity. When there's a disruption, there's actually, there's more discontinuity in the market, I would say, than there is in periods of stability. And what you have is a period of winners and losers. So I think there's a real opportunity here for market share gain for the businesses that perform really well. Clearly, we would say we're in an awesome position for that, being a low-price player with consumers highly likely to trade down into lower price point items. So we feel like we're very well placed, and so we want to make sure we're really there for our customers when they need something, and we can encourage them to come to us as much as possible. If I was to look more broadly, how does this play out? We've still got a lot of positives. We've got very high employment within Australia. We do have wage inflation, which is coming through, which will help offset some of those pressure points around cost of living increases. So I certainly don't feel like we're going to head into this incredibly dark time. I just feel like it's going to be a little bit more intense, a little bit more pressure, and there's real opportunity if we can execute well in this next period of time.
Okay, so some of the pundits are saying US, Europe going into recession, will be going into recession, and Australia might be very lucky to avoid. You think that's going to be accurate, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure I could be Nostradamus and predict that one accurately, but what we've seen, what have we seen so many times in Australia? We've seen recessions in Europe and the US, and Australia hasn't been there.
Yeah.
I think we've still got a very strong resource sector as a nation, which gives us some insulation, and we've got a pretty resilient consumer base that continues to spend. So we certainly do not see the same level of volatility that you see in the US or Europe when it comes to our economy. So I think if there is a slowdown for us, it'll be more moderate than we've seen in the US and Europe, but based on history and based on what we're seeing so far. And I don't think there's any reason to be terribly pessimistic about the future. It feels more like a normal cycle that we're coming into post a really peculiar COVID period.
Yeah, okay. I was just looking at a lot of the technology companies. The startups going to find it difficult to raise capital. And then the larger ones, as we've seen, are out, making severe cuts and will probably go deeper for a period of time. Flip side is, as you said a minute ago, China is coming back into play. And that's what's probably helped us a number of times over. It looks like it's back on. No, it's just interesting to see where we are and the guidance that we're getting and how you plan with the guidance. That's I was sort of getting a view of.
It's interesting how the market looks at this too, though, isn't it? You mentioned technology.
Yeah.
And, as we went into COVID, a lot of technology companies were being valued much more on their revenue growth, their number of their customers, more so than
Correct.
their economic returns.
Yep.
And then there was a switch that was flicked, which suddenly the market said economic returns are important. And a little bit like, if you go back in time, I'm going to show my age here, but you won't go back to the .com
Yes.
era.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty much exactly the same thing happened, right? It was all about growth, and then somebody said actually profit's important, and then there was a reset of that market. So it feels like it was a reset that probably is going to happen every now and again when you've got a market that was as hot as the technology market was. And then of course you've got the new technologies coming out. The whole Chat GPT and AI debate that's coming in is or topic that's now at play. It's changing the game. It's another round of disruption, which is starting to hit some of the tech players as well. So there's a couple of dynamics at play, I think.
What about immigration, Ian? That's we're starting to open up the doors there pretty rapidly. Is it coming in too fast, or how do you think it's being handled?
Yeah, well, here I am. You can probably tell from my accent, not born and bred in Australia. What a great move for me personally to have made the choice to come and live in such an awesome country. I think we are an immigrant nation. I think it's one of the things that makes us great. You go around our cities, they're some of the most multicultural cities on the planet. And it gives us incredible diversity. It gives us incredible breadth. We're fortunate that we can attract the best and brightest around the world. So we bring in incredible brains with great experience. And I think it's what we need as a country to continue to compete on the global stage. We're small. We have to realize that, not in geography, but in terms of numbers of people. 25 million does not really compete with the Indias and the Chinas of the world. So we just have to be super good at what we do, and bringing in talented people, I think, is essential for us to continue to be a great nation.
Okay. So whereabouts in the UK are you from?
I grew up in London. So I was in London till I was 18, and then I moved to Manchester to go to university and lived there for 8 years, and moved around a bit after that, a bit of time in Nottingham, and then back to London again before emigrating to Australia in the late 90s.
Okay, and I think I read somewhere along the lines during your younger school days, there was consideration of being a professional tennis player?
Yeah.
How good consideration, or?
Oh, you found out about that.
Well, how good were you?
Well, I was pretty good on my street. No, I got to about number 6 in the UK under 18.
Gee, that's pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, but UK wasn't the strongest tennis nation on the planet, which doesn't help. I got so far. I got a junior world ranking and a few other things, but at 18, I looked at myself. I was like 5'11", not 6'3", which most of the tennis players were. So I wasn't quite as athletic. I don't think my mind was as strong, if I'm really honest, at that age. And you look at a Djokovic or a Nadal. I mean, their minds are like fortresses, aren't they? I mean, they're just extraordinary how resilient they are at such a young age. Is incredible. And then, of course, they're good tennis players too. I think I had the good tennis player bit. I just needed some of the other things to really make it. So I made the call at 18 that maybe I shouldn't spend any more of mum and dad's money, and I should probably go and get some education and look after myself.
Okay, so civil engineering was where you pursued?
Yeah.
And then what, you part of that fairly swiftly afterwards, or what happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not an uncommon story, is it? I mean, how many kids know what they want to do? And of course, my whole game plan was to go and play tennis. And then suddenly I thought, maybe I need to do something different. My brother had already been through uni. He was 5 years older, still is, not surprisingly. And he's, he did aeronautical engineering. And I was studying maths, economics and physics at the time at school. So I just sort of fell into it, but it wasn't a game plan. And then halfway through my degree, I realized, I don't really fancy this. It's not really me. But equally, I didn't want to go back to start all over again. So I thought, let's finish the degree and go and earn some money.
All right. And you also qualified as an accountant too, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, that was my next stop. I mean, my next stop was going into accounting. So I could effectively go into an accounting firm, get my accounting qualification whilst being an employee.
Yeah.
So it saved me having to go back to do another degree and all the costs that come along for the ride with that.
Was there a genuine interest in business, or was this I'll pursue finance because it covers all bases?
Yeah, I wish I could say I had all these wonderful plans. But no, I think it was, I didn't really like the engineering side of it much. And it was a way of getting another qualification and earning money. And to be honest, I didn't really know what it was. My family wasn't, my mum and dad didn't come from university backgrounds. And, so dad was a print minder on Fleet Street, which basically means he sat by the machines as they printed newspapers overnight.
Yep.
And if they went wrong, he fixed them. And mum was a secretary. So, so it wasn't like our family was talking about, how to be a lawyer, how to be an accountant, how to be a doctor. It wasn't a conversation around our dinner table. So to a degree, I sort of had to throw myself into things and then figure out what it was and adjust from there.
Okay. So what did you throw yourself in? Because it sounded like you tried a few things in your younger days. Yeah,
well, I stayed with the accounting firm for 5 years, so I actually did a reasonable stint there. And then I sort of started to experiment. I travelled quite a lot, actually, outside of work. So I took a year off and, got my backpack and went around the world, had a wonderful time for a year. Then I got into different businesses. I got into healthcare, technology, sometimes in finance-based roles, sometimes in sales roles, sometimes consulting.
Okay.
So it was, I reckon there was a period of about 6 years where I was pretty much not in the same job for more than about 8 months or 12 months.
Okay.
Whether that was through changing jobs within the company or changing companies. When I look back at it in hindsight, it's been one of the great, fortunes of my life. I think I was very lucky now. It just gave me this ability to amass so many different experiences in a really short space of time. And when you get to an MD job or a CEO job, you've got to have context for so many different topics that somehow you need to have got exposure to those in your journey to enable you to be effective in your role.
So how did you get to Australia?
By plane, not by boat.
Yeah,
not quite that old.
And that was through a transfer, or was that through a backpacking expedition?
Yeah, no, good question. I first got placed out here with a tech company I was working with. So this was one where I did sort of force it a little bit. I was running their consulting team in the UK. They'd opened up a business in Australia. It wasn't going very well, and I went to the managing director at the time and said, why don't I go over there and run that for you? And which he said, yes. So 2 weeks later, I was here. That was in the mid-90s.
Okay.
I was here for 12 months. That business was an abject failure. I hasten to add, I closed it down. Was part of my job. It's one of those ones where you get to the country, as it was here. I got into Melbourne. And so then I did the first thing was let's scan the market to see what the competitors are like. And the competitor had 90% of the market and had better technology than we did. Didn't make for a good business.
No.
But I learned to love Melbourne through that experience. And then I applied for permanent residency.
Yeah, okay.
So when I went back to the UK, I applied. It took a couple of years to come through. So I came through as a skilled migrant. And in the late 90s, packed my stuff into a container, got on a plane and came out here to get a job.
Okay. And commencement into Retail Australia?
Yeah, that was 2002 into Officeworks. Was my first foray. So how did that happen? How does someone who's got like engineering, finance, consulting end up in CFO of a retail business? Officeworks was going through ERP replacement. It was SAP at the time, and the MD of the time was looking for a senior exec, the CFO, who had experience at sponsoring, chairing, leading such a big change program. And within my previous work, I'd implemented ERPs a couple of times as a consultant. So I came with the financial background as well as the tech implementation background, but without retail. And they were willing to take a risk on me on having those first two components, and they gambled on I'd learn the third, which is clearly what I did.
Pretty unusual in Australia. A lot of the time, they're very, very conservative. I'm sure you've seen that. And that you've got to tick 3 out of 3 9 times out of 10, or at least have the retail background to get through the front door. Less so, say, in the UK, but very much so in Australia. And sometimes we're penalised as a result, I think. I'm interested in your perspective, because that's definitely a terrific support for yourself and a great bet by that CEO.
It's funny, I do agree with you. We're probably guilty of it ourselves when we hire. We want Superman or Superwoman, with all the components. I think what we've learned over the years is actually if we've got the right foundations and the right character, with the right aptitude and the right skill sets, then you know what, they're going to hit the ground. They're going to learn really fast, and they're going to adapt on the way through. And and it's funny, right? Because you think about Australians as a society, and you think about the strength of Australian leaders. not just here in Australia, but on the global stage. It's one of the standout qualities is the ability to innovate and adapt. And I'd say Australian leaders, as much if not more so than anywhere in the world, are incredibly strong at that. And yet you have this somewhat conservative underbelly when it comes to hiring. So it is a little odd when you look at so many of the characters who are out there who are so capable.
Very much so. What made you stay in retail? Like you said, you've tried a few different things. You've got this first decent role in retail. Someone's backed you. A lot of change going on. You're rolling out, as you say, SAP. But you decided to stay in the game.
Yeah, it's such an interesting... Well, I found it. Clearly, I've got to give this from my perspective. It's such an interesting industry. The first thing is no one who comes into it says, when they were 8 years old, when I grow up, I want to be a retailer. Fireman, maybe, astronaut. But I want to be a retailer. It doesn't generally come up on the list. So most of us land in here by accident. Now, for some of us, we enter when we're at school. We start working in a store and work our way through the system, never leave. And you got other people like me that drop in halfway through the process and also fall in love with it and stay. So why is it? What is it that's attractive? I think it's this combination of execution and strategy. So some businesses I've been in, it's just all execution. Others, it's all strategy. And this one, you've got to get both right. And then when you've got to get both right, then you've got to get the people aspect right, because 50,000 people is a lot.
Yeah.
And so the only way you can be successful if those 50,000 people sort of line up in the right direction and sort of work together well enough on the way through that you can actually achieve your objectives. So I think within all of that, what you get is an incredible amount of complexity. Complexity in an everyday context. I feel like I'm giving you a few random comments here, but see if it hangs together. But and because we're everyday people in our business, you can tell by my background, someone who's got lucky on the way and found himself in a really good job, but didn't come from a privileged background. That is so true of so many people within our organisation, and so we're constantly looking for ways. How do we make the complex simple? How do we navigate some of these really tricky questions and then break it down to something that everybody can grasp and everybody can buy into? And that's really satisfying when you get to that level of comprehension and that level of understanding, that you can help break this down to something which everybody can really engage in.
Yeah, it's quite addictive, isn't it?
It is. Yes. And you think about how much these businesses change now. I mean, even in the time I've been in retail, so I've been here since 2002 when I joined Officeworks. At that time, it was pretty much buy stuff and sell stuff and try and keep customers happy, make a bit of money. Yeah. Quite a big topic, as we all know. Cyber would be another one out there. Even government relations and how to manage the changing legislative environment. Yep. So you name them, right? There's just so many things now which are on our plate we need to grapple with.
Yeah, and the other tough thing, I guess, in retail, you can't hide, can you? You're only as good as yesterday's numbers.
No, it does. It does.
It's a tough gig.
It does make for a funny life, though. Let me go to the positive, because you could go to an early grave if it really bothered you. I think the nice thing is, one of the things I always love about this business is so here we are, we're chatting, and which is lovely to have a conversation. Meanwhile, customers are coming in and buying stuff. Mm-hmm. I love that. When I was in consulting, nobody was buying stuff when I was chatting to somebody else. You had to be out there selling. And it was much more binary whether you got revenue, whether you didn't get revenue, where we know people are going to shop tomorrow. And then the question is, how good are we relative to the market that they choose us over other people? And so I think it comes back to this purity of strategy is really important, because you have to differentiate. You have to be different to others. But at the same time, you've got to execute to a very, very high standard. And those two things are unusual combinations to have. Generally teams and people are good at one of those more so than the other. Go back to your question, what makes a great retailer? Great proposition and then executing at a high level without question is a key part of it.
I'm going to come to it a bit later, but I might ask you just now, actually. You mentioned differentiate. That means that, okay, somewhere along there's got to be ideas put forward. It's got to be innovative or whatever the case, the language you want to use.
Yep.
Where does the point of differentiation come from? How much is external? How much is from the old consulting houses? How much is it from people in the team putting up ideas? How much is it the exec team sitting out and push somewhere and bouncing ideas off each other? How do you formulate it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We can come back to the Kmart story and some of that in a second, but I'd say what's the guiding principle? It's got to be customer. I know it's a cliche to say that, but if I look at businesses which are successful, they've understood the customer in a way that other people have not. So therefore, they've deviated from the from the masses, if you like, or from their competitors. They've taken a different path. And they've taken that different path because they've got a different understanding of the end consumer or the end customer. And then, of course, they build out capabilities which other businesses don't have, and in the end, they win. And that was very much the journey that Kmart went down. Kmart also had history because we were a business that had been around for like 40-odd years. So there was a lot of history in the business. We could look back in time to see when was the business great, and when it was great, what was it doing? So we sort of had a reference point in the past. If you're a startup, of course, you don't have that same reference point, but you still need to have that same customer insight that gives you that unique perspective. And I think if you look at any of the really great businesses around the world, they've figured something out that other people haven't, and then they've just got so good at it that it's almost impossible for people to catch them.
On that, Ian, who does lead the way? Is it the customer, or you providing that lofty thing over there that is going to draw the customer?
It's the customer leads the way without question, because we can't manufacture demand that the customer doesn't want in the first place. However, does the customer know what doesn't exist?
Exactly.
But so therefore it comes back to there's an underlying need which you've understood, which has always been there in the customer. So that it's just the manifestation of the solution is new, but the need has been there for a long period of time. People have always wanted low prices. It's not a new concept. What we did though was we put all our energy into making sure that we did that better than anybody else within our market, and so we sacrificed other things. If you want to be awesome at something, go back to school, right? If you're studying 8 subjects. I mean, there's some very brainy people out there that can be really good at all 8 subjects. You know, if you're a bit more normal, then you want to be really good, you've got to study on 1 or 2 of them, and maybe not study quite so hard at some of the others. I'm not sure that's great advice for anybody who's studying, by the way, but anyway. Hopefully you get what I mean. To get really good at something, you've got to focus, and that the strategy is the clarity that enables you to focus.
Okay. You made the move across to Kmart. You want to talk us through that? Why?
Yeah, I'd done 4 years in Officeworks. I had a wonderful time. Really enjoyed it, and I just felt ready for the next change. And very different. Officeworks at the time was a wonderful business. Still is, by the way. Wonderful business that was growing so fast. We were just basically rolling out stores, and profit was growing faster than revenue. It was, it was. Sometimes you get these magic windows in your career, and where you just land somewhere at the right time, anyway, it was the right time, right place. Performed really well, and then I got the opportunity to go to Kmart, which was much bigger in terms of scale. A business that was more troubled. Our business had been on about $4 billion of revenue for about a decade. It made a little bit of money, not much, and there was a big question mark as to what's the future of the business. So in terms of the challenge, really, really significant. I also got the chance to work with Larry Davis, who was the MD at the time, who had retail legend status when I joined the business. He'd just come out of Target. He'd been phenomenally successful there. And I thought, what an opportunity to go and learn retail from somebody who just oozed retail, which Larry did.
What stood out with Larry then? What defined Larry as a great retailer?
Yeah, he was, certainly one thing he had was passion and enthusiasm. I'm sure Larry wouldn't mind me saying this. I mean, at times he could be a little crazy. so we certainly had some interesting times as we navigated our journey. But what he came with product. He loved product, and what he taught me was the importance of the product offer. And if you do look at a business like Kmart, whilst we have wonderful stores, wonderful team members, we have great factories, great sourcing, great technologists, great marketers, unless we have good product, it doesn't work. It's the fundamental element of who we are as a business, is for any retailer. Your product and price offer has to be amazing. And my experience with him, he taught me that. And that was a super valuable lesson, because sometimes you can get lost in all the other stuff, all the other important things that need to get done, and not realize, you can be A-grade at some of those other things, but unless the product's right, you haven't got a business.
And also during your career, and you moved out of finance to operations. Not everyone can do that.
Yeah, I never really saw myself as an accountant, though. I mean, I know I got the qualification. I'm a bit like I don't really see myself as an engineer. I would have liked to see myself as a tennis player, but as we talked about, that didn't work out.
Okay.
So I think when you look at it through that lens, yes, I did move from the CFO role to an operations role. But for those that worked with me when I was in the CFO position, I was not the technical finance person thinking about accounting standards. I always had super strong teams, And if I was to go back in time to when I got that move into COO from CFO, I had an amazing team at the time. So I had 6 direct reports. One of them subsequently became a managing director. The other 5 became general managers. So it meant the day job I really wasn't doing because I had a team of people to do the day job for me because they were so capable. So I went to school on merchandise for about 2 years prior to me moving into COO. Yeah, so I used to sit in the merchandise reviews. I'd spend time with the GM of merch on where the product was going, how we were going to evolve the product offer, how we're going to evolve pricing strategies. So by the end of that 2 years, I felt like I'd done my apprenticeship in merchandise. I was never going to be as good as a buyer who'd come through the system. I'm not going to be a subject matter expert, but I had the understanding of the important elements, the strategy, and how to execute within the merchandise field. So I think if there's anything I'd suggest to anyone is build great teams. It gives you capacity to go and learn more stuff.
How do you build a great team?
I think it goes back to that conversation we had a little earlier on. I definitely think you've got to find people with the right aptitude. So I love people who are humble. I think ego is a real problem if you're looking at team-based environments, and something like a retail is so team-based because you need combinations of people to work together to get outcomes. And ego is friction in relationships. It makes it much harder. So people who are humble, really important. People who are willing to get right in. So we're not presidents here where we sit in the stands watching the game or watching the show. We're on the field. So people that are happy to get in, get their hands dirty, really important. They've got to want to learn, and this learning cadence, because there's so much to learn. They've got to have this desire and this almost hunger to figure out what's going on, to want to get in and really, really get it. Yeah, and then occasionally you need technical expertise. It sort of helps if you're running supply chain that you know what distribution centers are. So there's times you need some technical expertise as well because of the nature of the role. But generally I'd prioritise the attributes and the core capabilities as long as the technical pieces are adequate.
Okay. And also during this period of time, Kmart acquires Target. Can you talk us through the history, the thinking, the execution of that, and what the outcome longer term will be?
This was a little different. It wasn't quite an acquisition. So obviously we're all owned by Wesfarmers. And historically what we had Target and Kmart were run independently as 2 independent divisions, originally under Coles Group and subsequently under Wesfarmers. And what there was a lot of unnecessary competition. So if I just give you one example, you can take real estate and leasing. We're both 5,000 square metre stores, both in shopping malls. Needless to say, we would end up pitching against ourselves and pushing rents up because one business would want it and the other business would want it, even though we're in the same company, Wesfarmers. I use that one as a nice, simple example. There's other examples out there as well where we effectively came into unnecessary conflict. So the view was actually, you're sort of one category in terms of the types of retail that you are. You're different businesses. We want to keep you as 2 separate businesses, but you should be in one group.
Okay.
So in 2016, the businesses were brought together in one group so that we could then manage them in combination. Now, we still run them quite separately. So I've got Richard Pearson, who's the managing director of Target, and I've got John Galtieri, who's the CEO of Kmart. So we still run them as 2 organisations quite independently. But what we do is we have people like myself and my CFO, Alex Vaseska, who make sure that we don't, shoot ourselves in the foot or overcompete for no value between the 2 businesses.
But you're known for reinvention. What does that actually mean?
The challenge with retail is it's not a secret business. Take one of the healthcare companies that's producing new drugs. I'm sure there's a lot of R&D that sits in labs which nobody can find, or they try and hide away, probably quite successfully. Retail's not like that. You can just walk in. and in fact, we want people to walk in most of the time and come shopping. So therefore, whenever we come up with a strategy and an execution, it's immediately visible. So unless we're on a constant path of improvement and evolution, we just get imitated and overtaken. So innovation is a necessity.
Yeah, okay.
It's not an option, it's a necessity. The example I like the best here is some of the pop stars. You think about some of the all-time greats, like let's just take David Bowie as an example, or Madonna. They've got this ability to be themselves and yet find their next iteration of who they are. And it's really marked, isn't it, sometimes those changes which they go through on their journey. Now, I'm not sure ours has been quite so marked, but equally, we can't fall in love with who we were. We can't fall in love with some of the things that made us successful in the past because, they might need to change. They might need to iterate. They might need to evolve. So we very much have an eye on the future. We very much have an eye on there's nothing sacred within the organisation beyond a couple of things, which I can come back to. And therefore, we're going to constantly focus on performance and how do we serve our customers to a better level than we have in the past.
But you shifted in product too, right? What you've developed as an organisation, you've shifted in your sourcing, to make sure you kept the pricing, as you say, is a key differentiator.
It comes from one overarching question, how do we deliver products to customers at the lowest possible price? So that was the question. Yep. And then we had a secondary piece of that. How do we do that without any compromise? And I think that was the amplifier of our strategy. You think about discount stores, they're generally warehouses.
Yeah.
They're generally got all these visual cues to tell you the product's cheap. And what we went to is actually we don't want that. We don't want customers to feel cheap, basically. We want customers to feel smart. So for them to feel smart, they can't feel like they're compromising on the quality. They can't feel like they're compromising on the style. They can't feel like they're compromising on the ethics in the way that the product was made. So this idea of no compromise while hitting lowest price comes out. So how do you do that? You have to get right into, it goes back to having those leaders that get into the detail. You have to figure out, well, where does things really cost money and where doesn't it? And if you take something like, let's take something basic like a T-shirt. What makes a great T-shirt? Well, number one, does it fit? Fit's actually quite a complicated topic, and anybody who's in the apparel industry out there will trying to get a T-shirt to fit across all the size curves that you have in the market is not a straightforward thing. However, it doesn't cost you more to make a T-shirt that fits well versus one that fits badly.
Okay.
And then you take colour. Black and white are always going to be the same, but you're always going to have fashion colours that come in and out. Picking the right colour is super important. Is the fabric the right quality, that it's durable, it will wash and the colour won't fade? You get the idea, right? Most of these things don't cost money, they cost care and attention. And if you've got a deep enough understanding of the process, then you can just say, how do I strip out all the unnecessary stuff between the product being made and the end consumer? And so that's what we set our mission on, removing all the unnecessary costs. So if I was to give you an example, when we started the journey, we were often buying, even if we bought an own brand product, bought something that was just sold in Kmart, we would work with an agent who was based in Australia. That agent would work with an agent based in Hong Kong, who would work with an agent probably based in China somewhere. So you've got 3 multipliers of profit before the product gets to us. We just said, let's go to the factory. And astonishing how much money comes out. When you do go to the factories, what you see these rows of, particularly apparel factories, you see these rows of sewing machines. Mm-hmm. And at the end of each row, there's a retailer name. There's a brand name that sits at the top, because virtually none of us use one factory solely. We don't have 100% use of a factory. We share the factories with multiple other retailers.
And yet we're buying all this similar product.
These retailers are, I'm not going to, I clearly won't use names because it wouldn't be appropriate, but these are all the retailers that you'll find in the shopping mall, or a lot of them, selling products 10 times, maybe more than Kmart does. Yep. In exactly the same factory, made by the same people.
Well, that's the art of branding and marketing, all that other stuff that we get tied into, isn't it? The salesmanship.
Yeah, so what we said was we've got a different philosophy here, because we're going to make beautiful products, and the team have done an incredible job over the years. And every time we figure out how to save money, we're going to drop the price. Most people go the other way. Most people say, if I can make a more beautiful product, how much more can I charge for it?
Yeah, right.
And that's just extended our lead relative to the market over time, because our products continues to improve and our prices continue to fall. And so, of course, the delta to our competition grows. And Kmart will be close to an $8 billion business this year in its own right. Target's a bit more than $2 billion, so it gives us the $10 billion. When I started at Kmart, we were a $4 billion business, so we've doubled the size of the business in that period of time. And our prices that are way lower than when we started. So as you can imagine, we've way more than doubled the amount of units that we sell every year.
And you mentioned the word ethical. How bad is it in retail?
I actually think retail's it's come a long way. I actually don't think it's bad. I spent a lot of time in the sourcing world. So when I was chief operating officer, one of my areas of accountability, and still is sourcing. So I got to Asia pretty much once a month for about 8 years. So I would have seen hundreds and hundreds of factories over time, and seeing how they've evolved. And there's been some horrors in history. So Rana Plaza would be one, which was in Bangladesh, which is a horrific incident. Nothing to do with us, I hasten to add. We were not in that facility, but we could have been. That's the reality. When you operate in any market, right? There's always and so that moment in time really galvanized us to. We've got a couple of choices here. We either move out of these markets. We concluded very quickly that was the wrong thing to do. There is so much benefit from retailers like us, international brands being in these markets to help give their economy growth. And somewhere like, we'll just look at China. I mean, China, one of the great powerhouses of China has been its manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And look how wealthy that country has become. It's like a case study for how you take a country out of poverty to make it a wealthy country. And it's been done through manufacturing as one of the great levers. And you see it in places like Bangladesh, much earlier on in its journey. But the wealth of that country is growing because of their biggest export, which is clothing. The clothing industry drives export more than anything else. Yeah, so I think when you look at ethics and how products are made, we got into that really quickly because we said we've got a moral obligation to ensure that people who are working on our products are treated well, they're paid appropriately. And so we implemented our own ethical sourcing standards, which we scoured the world and we came up with what we thought was the most appropriate. We have direct access to our factories, so we have people in the factories, so we're not relying on a third-party auditor. We're in there checking ourselves, and not just on a one-off audit, on an ongoing basis. So we've got this live view. Then we said, okay, well, how do we tell our customers about this? So we were the first ones to publish our factory lists, certainly en masse of the large retailers within Australia. We were the first to sign up to the Accord on Building Safety in Bangladesh, which was the collaboration between unions and retailers and brands after Rana Plaza to help improve the building standards within Bangladesh. We've joined numerous things over the years with a view that we've got to make a difference in these countries in which we operate. And, I can put hand on my heart, having been there for the last decade, that the change is extraordinary.
You're listening to No Limitations with special guest Ian Bailey. In our next episode, I sit down with Joseph Healy, co-founder and chief executive officer of Judo Bank.
Well, we always said we're not going to get into this having a plan B. We're going to have a plan A and we're going to make it work. And nothing in life worth doing is easy. That's the one thing I've learned, and I would say most people have learned who've been successful, that very rarely in life does it come to you. But the harder you work at something, then the more opportunities for luck you create.
Be sure to join us on our next episode. And now, back to the show.
Take a country like India.
Yep.
I mean, 10 years ago, were we really thinking India was going to be one of the top two countries in the world in terms of GDP? Maybe a minimum top three, right? Probably not. But that country is like motoring at the moment. And when I had the hiatus over COVID where we couldn't travel, went back to Delhi and Gurgaon. And my goodness, it's like in that 3 years, the country has just continued to accelerate. Now, manufacturing was a big part of India in the early days. Clearly, they've moved into technology and into other areas now. But yeah, you see this incredible growth over time in the countries that we work with, and it gives me great confidence that we are a contributor to helping move a lot of these countries out of poverty.
COO to MD.
Was I ready?
Well, it looked like on paper, but I don't know you. Were you ready? Were you ready for the step up?
Am I ready now? That's the other question.
Well, the growth looks outstanding. What's been achieved from the organisation?
Yeah, I managed to keep the job for a few years, so far so good. I'd say yes and no. Yes and no. I was CFO for quite a number of years in different businesses, so I had a lot of financial experience. I had 8 years as a chief operating officer running the operations. And my boss at the time gave me a lot of freedom. So even the areas I didn't run, I was very close to. So I felt more like deputy MD than I was COO, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years. And so then when I went into the role, I thought it won't be that big a jump. I was wrong. Even though I was in that ready to go position, you suddenly there's no safety net.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anything the organisation doesn't know what to do with lands with you on any topic that happens to come up. So no, I remember pedaling pretty hard for the first couple of years when I got into the role to try and settle in, Made sure, as ever, got the right team around me, because you figure out pretty quickly where have I got the right support base, where have I got the right characters who I can lean on, who can help me when I don't know what to do on a topic and can give me really sound advice, and can also run the business and execute well.
So just on that, Ian, you're swift when you make those decisions?
Yes. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Logic and belief. Logic takes time, belief is quick. And I generally go with belief. So if it feels wrong, I'll generally act.
Yeah, right.
Which, you wouldn't think coming out of a financial background, but it's so easy to procrastinate. Because you can think through all the reasons why not, the risks, the challenges, but I might not have the right person lined up or whatever it happens to be. But what's the old saying? If you make a change and the next person comes in so much better than the previous, no one says, I wish I'd waited longer to make that decision.
So when you took on the role, Ian, in your mind, what were you going to change, or what was good going to look like over the next 5-6 years? Do
you mind if I just round out that last conversation just on people?
Sure.
Because we're talking about one end of the spectrum, which is when someone really doesn't work out. That's the last port of call for me. My first port of call is how can I develop? And so one of the things that I work super hard on is, my team I'm sure would replay this. I do like to give a lot of feedback. It is purely from a perspective of I want them to be the best that they can be. And my job as their leader is to help coach, guide, stretch, and encourage them to want to be the best that they can be as well. And I think if you've got those two elements, if you're trying to bring all of your leaders up on the journey, and then if one of them doesn't quite make it for whatever reason and you supplement, it's still a very powerful model. And if you look at the Kmart business, we've got so many execs which have been with us for about 15 years. Equally, we've got a number of execs which have been with us less than 12 months. But one thing's for sure, you cannot churn everybody all the time. You've got no business then. You need really good people that really understand DNA of the organisation, understand that if you pull this lever, this is what's going to happen. And so I highly value people that we've kept and have dedicated their time to Kmart for the last 15 years. It's incredibly powerful.
So just on the practical side, Ian, just how you say you spend the time with your people to bring them up, what does that look like? Is that meeting one-on-one every week, meeting once every 2 weeks? Just in practical terms, how do you do it? Because you've got a tight diary.
It depends on the person. If I think about my leaders at the moment, some of the team, we might really speak once a month in detail for a whole host of reasons. But when we do get together, it's for, might be for 2 days, and we cover a lot of ground in that period. There's others I speak to daily. So I very much try and adapt to my leaders because, versus they have to force them to comply with me. I'm sure there's a few things they do if they're listening. I'm not quite that benevolent, but equally I know that if I'm trying to communicate with someone, the more I can do it on their terms in a way that they easily digest, then the more chance it's going to be heard and the more chance they're going to act. So I very much try and adapt to the character and the nature of each of my leaders.
Are you a visionary leader then?
I don't think I'd call myself visionary. I'm considered, as you can probably tell. I try and be quite human and, and be just like a normal person versus being some idiot who gets a bit carried away with themselves in the top job. But equally, you need to hold the business to standards. At times you need to set a course, which is not commonly supported, because otherwise you do consensus leadership, and that's pretty dangerous. So there's times the business needs me to step up and say, okay, we're going left instead of right because we've hit a fork in the road. And then you just make the call. Once you said you're going left, we're going to make left work no matter what. And it provides that clarity. So I think there's times where I'd say maybe there's a yes there, but as you can tell, it doesn't sit comfortable with me being called that. I don't see myself as that. I see myself just doing the job I need to do when it needs to be done, and I do what the business needs when the business needs it.
So, Ian, just on that, when have you had to call left or right?
Yeah, on our product journey, we made some pretty big calls when we were going to own brand. So if you think about our offer, we pretty much re-engineered the whole store. So if this was a construction project, this would be like a construction project in the city where they keep the fascia of the building. They knock down the whole thing inside, and then they build a brand new building, on the back of the fascia. So from the outside, it looks like it's the same. From the inside, it's fundamentally different. It's pretty much what we did when we re-engineered the the Kmart business. You can't do that with lots and lots of small iterations. Every now and again, you've got to take a big step. And to take a big step requires organizational courage, and it requires safety for the people making the big step. Otherwise, the risk is too great. So a couple of examples for you that I can give you. We figured out that our own brand underwear sold really well. At the time, 50% of our sales in underwear were Kmart products. 50% were one of the best-known brands in the market. I won't say the name.
Yeah.
And we made the decision to derange the brand. So effectively, we risked 50% of the sales in that move. Now, we worked with the buying teams on that, and we gave them the comfort, said, we know the sales are going to go backwards, but we're betting on, and our view is there'll be a dip with a big acceleration. And so your job is to get the acceleration. So whatever the step down becomes, your job is to accelerate fast beyond it, and that's your mission. And the team did a wonderful job, incredible job of figuring it out. And our underwear business went from strength to strength. It's like way bigger than it ever was when we had the brand in our business. The offer was so much simpler for the end customer because we didn't have two of everything. We didn't have the Kmart one and the branded one. We just had the one, which meant we could put more volume behind it, which meant we could get a lower cost price, which meant we could drop the retail price. And things that were $10 and now $8 tend to sell a lot more. So it became incredibly powerful. But that would be one where we gave the team a call. The second one was we used to have a toy sale.
Oh, yeah.
Most peculiar event, actually. This was in the business before I joined. It was obviously somebody's brainchild from many years ago. So this was the July toy sale where we would put a lot of stuff on lay-by. And then a big percentage of those products wouldn't be picked up at Christmas. So you'd end up with this highly loss-making event. Lots and lots of sales. I don't know if you remember, this is when people used to rock up at midnight for the start of the toy sale in July.
Yeah.
And she's quite peculiar. Why are you buying your kids' toys in July? I don't know about you. I can never predict in July what my kids wanted for Christmas.
That's right. That's right.
So lots of sales, no profit, and lots of market share. So you look at it through those lenses, like how painful is it to get rid of that? So we decided to get rid of it. And the team who were working on it at the time, we said, okay, so if we're going to get rid of the toy sale, our everyday toy offer, we're not going to be able to match those sales in that week. It's impossible. But what we can do is we can lift our sales in every other week by having a fundamentally better offer. So let's improve the core offer and we'll take out this piece. Now your job is to improve the core offer. And the team did an amazing job of figuring out how to create a better offer, and our own brand's gone from strength to strength. More than 60% of our toys are toy sales in our Kmart product. Anko, which is our own brand, is the biggest toy brand in the market, of any toy brand, not just in our store, but in the market in total. So anyway, two examples where you basically give the team permission to take a big step because they know they're supported, but equally they know what their job is in the process.
And just on that, Ian, are you surprised who actually steps up and who doesn't step up?
Yes, I hadn't actually thought of it through that lens, but yes, it's quite addictive. Once people make some of those big steps, they get really they get emboldened, right? Because if I can because it's a bit like if I've just done a massive step, taking a medium step doesn't seem that big anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sort of resets people's perspectives, and we've seen some of our leaders throughout the different levels of our organisation just get more comfortable with change after making some of those big steps. And you're right, equally, it's paralysing for some.
Yeah, I interviewed a CEO in the past who was very surprised by the people that he had around him at the time weren't willing to step up. And yet he was going to territory he'd never been into before and knew it was a risk. But like yourself, had thought it through, balanced decision, and came to the outcome.
Yeah.
And some just said, I can't go with you, unfortunately. And he was quite surprised by that thinking. By experienced, qualified people you think could do it in their sleep.
It's interesting, isn't it? One of the thought processes I have is whenever something doesn't work out in the way that I would have liked, my thought process is I've got what I've asked for.
Interesting. Okay.
It's incredibly empowering because you never feel powerless, right? Because in every situation, you feel like, well, okay, well, this is something's gone wrong in our organisation. Somebody did something I didn't want them to do, or something didn't happen I would have liked to have happened. Somehow I've asked for that. What is it I've done that's meant that someone wasn't willing to take that risk? What was it about the environment, about the way that we communicated the objectives or the parameters or our expectations that meant that it was interpreted incorrectly? And I find when you take that lens, it gives you a different perspective, and you can generally find a way to get more of the population engaged. There is always going to be a slither, but I think the number of people that really don't get it in the end is pretty small. My guess is it's 10% or less. But what you need is, it's like finding the key to unlock the code so that people can feel empowered and accountable.
What are you asking in terms of leadership today compared to, say, 10 years ago? Because the game's changed.
Yeah, it has. I actually worry about this. I think the role of the CEO is so difficult. I'm not saying that. It sounds funny if you say that. But I think I'm fortunate because I've been in the role and I've been learning these new things I've needed to learn on the journey. The people who come into the role now need to do that from a standing start. As we talked about, I thought I was ready going from COO to CEO or to MD, but I still found that was a big step, and that step's bigger now than it was then. So I think it is. I think it is a challenge. I think the expectation on business leaders is incredibly high. Even the concepts of social license to operate.
Yep.
I mean, if you'd have used those words 10 years ago, nobody would have understood what it meant. Now,
absolutely.
Now the expectations, we need to have opinions on many things in the market these days, which are well beyond the sphere of selling T-shirts and selling plates and selling toys.
Someone put the question, well, should you? You're a CEO. Do I need to hear what your thoughts are on social injustice or justice? I'm not sure the answer is, but there's arguments either way.
You look at some of the trust indexes that are out there, and number one corporates are right up the top of the most trusted organisations within Australia. And you go further into that, for the team members that work for those organisations, even more so. So I think when you see CEOs talk, and certainly when I talk on topics, I'm always thinking about my team, because it could be that the message is as much to my team as it is to the broader market. And it's a topic that I think is important for us as an organisation, or it's important for my team that they know what I believe around this topic. And because we've got 50,000 people, a lot of whom are, it's not the thing they wake up and dream about every day is their career at Kmart. They've got a job to earn some money because they've got other things going on in their life, whether they're still at school, whether they're at uni, whether they're at another life stage. And so if I can communicate to them through the media, it's pretty effective. Most people like reading about the business they work for, whether it's in the old-fashioned newspapers or online news, more so than they like reading a corporate comms.
Do you think leaders, and this is a tricky one, it's more philosophical, are really fulfilling the duty of care to those coming in and building their careers? If you look back when you started out all those years ago, you had someone been around the block, took you under the wing and brought you through. And I was out last evening having a chat with a number of people who's got kids, left university. People aren't coming in a lot. They've got no guidance. They're doing okay, but they could be doing a lot better. And this is parents saying this. So where's the duty of care from leaders in the country? Maybe that's one strong argument versus, it's okay, little Johnny and little Mary can sit at home and work from home. But, then there's other things. There could be mental challenges down the path. We don't seem to be tackling that discussion too well, I don't think. But I'm interested, what do you got, 50,000 plus people? It's a big role. But, what is the duty of care there when you're bringing people in to build their career and help them get their career in the right way?
I think it's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things around it. First of all, I think expectations have changed. I think when I started my career, when you went to an employer, the question you generally didn't ask, "What are you going to do for me, employer?" Wasn't not like how you would approach it.
That's right.
It was pretty much, what can I, how do I come in here and start at the bottom and work my way up? And like most people, I did exactly the same, right? I was the photocopying and coffee boy for the first 6-12 months that I got into the accounting firm, and you learned where the files were and learned how to do all the basics on the way through. I think the expectation gap's quite different now. The kids coming through from school and from uni, they're just so much wiser. They've got so much more access to information, and so their expectations are so much higher. So I think the game has fundamentally changed around what do we need to do to bring people onto our business and to help grow and develop. So I'd say the first thing is the environment's shifted dramatically. We have to be good at that. So in our model, we're one of the biggest employers of juniors in the country. So ourselves and one of the bigger fast food chains, who I'm sure you figure out who that is that we are the two, and we see ourselves, we've got a role in the community. And our role in the community is to help first jobbers, so the kids coming into the job market for the first time, start to get their head around the basics of earning money and starting to learn life. It's a bit like, you go to school to learn a whole bunch of stuff, come for a job in Kmart, and we'll teach you the basics of having a job. of needing to be on time, of needing to present yourself, of needing to be present when you're in the role. We'll give you, training modules, and we'll help you with different situations of how to manage customers, how to do technical tasks like manage registers and other things. So we'll do all of those things. But really what we're doing is we're giving you the foundations of what it's like to work for a living. For me, that's actually a very simple thing. But as a parent, my older daughter's just about to come out of uni, and my younger one's just started her first casual job. It feels good when your kids know how to wait on tables or fill shelves. Maybe they do that all their lives, maybe they don't. But learning to understand the value of money and the importance of working for an employer and what's expected of you from an early age, I think is really helpful.
All right, but if I put up the middle management, Ian, in terms of productivity, when I'm having chats with chief execs and they close the door, they're all saying productivity is nowhere near what it was pre-COVID. And I'm caught in a catch-22, duty of care, one to those people who want to be productive and have a good income. I have a duty of care to my shareholders and my key stakeholders. And I'm sitting here and I know productivity is not up. Well, there's challenges around it. That's not me saying it. It's been provided. Are you facing similar challenges in that regard? And is that another conversation? Bearing in mind we are coming into potentially some difficult times ahead of us. We may not be recession, but it's going to be a bit of a slowdown potentially.
I think we're in a different position to a lot of businesses. Our mission is to remove cost out of our system so that we can give it back to customers. And it's so ingrained in who we are. So the productivity conversation never, ever goes away. And so we've never taken the foot off the gas on that. So I think we're probably, the nature of our business, we're less exposed to that than some. I'd say the second piece where it is playing out, though, is in technology. You talk about how do we reinvent? Well, we need to become a digital business. And we figured that out a number of years ago because, we're up against the Amazons and the Googles
about that.
Of the world who have, this incredible technology, and they're doing it through tech where we do it through people. Now, we're never going to go to the same technology levels as some of those organizations. It's not who we are. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that technology can do to a much higher standard than we can ourselves, and it can complement and amplify the capability of our team members. So we've been investing in that for a number of years now, probably about 5 years we've been on that journey, and particularly through COVID, we accelerated our investment in digital. And so what we've done there is we've got the early stage investment, and not surprisingly, you invest early in something like that, and the returns you get are modest because you've got to put in foundations. Like you're building a house, you sort of got to put in the plumbing, you've got to put in the foundation elements before you can start building the beautiful rooms and so on. So you've got the same thing in tech. We've got to build out the tech stack. We've got to build out the data assets that we need, and then we've got to get good at using it. So even if you've got all the right technology and you've got the right data, you've still got to have the right operating model that enables you to realize the value on the way through. So I'd say the piece that's on our mind relative to this topic is, okay, we're well into the journey. We've got some really good assets. Now we've got our ability to really realize the value. So value realization from us, from our technology investments, is very high on our list. That's something we're very, very focused on. We've got some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, one of the ones we talked about a few times is we've got this robot Tori.
Yeah.
So Tori goes around to our stores every night and scans all our apparel products and lets us know exactly where our products are by location. So it's a daily stock take. Our traditional approach is an annual stock take.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So this is, do we need more or less team members because we've got a daily stock take? It's exactly the same number of team members. This technology is not about replacing team members. This technology is about giving the team members good data. And so then we can help team members say, you know what, we run out of size 10s of this shirt. Can you go get one out the back and put it on show so that it's available for the customer? We could never do that in the past because our data was too inaccurate. So lots of things where we've got these new capabilities to really enhance what our teams can do.
Just building on that, Ian, over the next 5-10 years, what are we expecting in terms of, I guess, the customer experience, if you want to use that language, looking forward in retail or yourselves?
Yeah, I think a revolution. I think fundamentally different. So the blend between online and offline, or online and stores, is just going to tighten and tighten and tighten. So the proposition that we have with our consumers is they engage with us when they want to engage with us. And we've all got phones, right? So everyone, as soon as it's amazing now, isn't it? If you think about something, before you know it, your hand's in your pocket or your hand's in your bag to whip out the phone, and you're doing whatever you're doing. On the way through. So people are engaging with us at incredible levels. So we need to make sure we've got the right content. So I think we've gone to the days of just saying, there's a plate for $2, would you like it? To actually, what do I buy with this plate? How do I make this plate look good in my home? And so this is where things like social content, I think, is going to become increasingly important, and making that available to customers in a way that they feel, yeah, that's helpful to me, I think will be really useful. So I think you'll see a lot more immersion in the apps of retailers, particularly the big ones like us, so that they're really useful places for customers. If we get it wrong, then it will be like, I can't find the product, and you just put a bunch of rubbish in my face, which I don't want. So this isn't about advertising. This isn't about trying to find another economic model. It's trying to actually engage more intensely with our customers in a way that really works for them. And that needs to translate in store, because at the moment, you go from this very personalized environment online where we can be surfacing the products which are relevant to you because you've told us who you are, because we know what you bought before. And then you go into store and it's a one-size-fits-all. There's going to be an adaptation in store where we find ways to bring that feeling of we know you, and we can help you find the things you're looking for more easily, just to make the whole shopping experience smoother and easier and nicer. So this isn't some sort of horrible Big Brother invasion of your privacy thing. We just want to make it so easy for customers. They can find what they want. It's an enjoyable experience, and they want to come back.
And the power of marketing, or power of engagement, and how you go about it. You talk social media there. That's evolved, hasn't it, dramatically in the last, again, 10, 15 years. From direct marketing through to, as you say, coming through, then giving me advice, etc. The investment and the effort in that area, I would have thought it's absolutely enormous.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. But the thing I'd say is you've got to think back to who you are and know what you're good at as well. So one of the things I've always thought is you've got the tech companies. We use language, ruthless logic, right? Ruthless logic, the elimination of friction, logical, rational, but not a lot of human connection, if I was to be harsh.
Yes.
And then you've got brands, right? Let's go to some of the more traditional brands, including us.
Yep.
We've got human connection. And our marketers over the years have done a lot to try and make our customers feel like we get you, right? We understand you. And then we get this relationship come back. And, I've stood in Kmart stores, particularly in home, and listened to customers. And you get an outpouring of emotion because they absolutely love it. Finding something which they can afford, which they feel is going to make their home look better, makes them feel good. And then they get that association with the brand. And you see it on social media. We come up in one of the most loved brands surveys. We're normally in the top 5 within Australia, depending upon which survey it is. That's super powerful. Yeah. So I think the future is blending the two. So if I was a tech company, I'd be trying to figure out how do I become more human. And if I'm a brand, as I am, I'm trying to figure out, but how do I make it as efficient? How do I make it as frictionless without losing our personality, without losing our humanity in the way that we connect with our customers? So then you go back into, how does that translate into the marketing then?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff's still really important. We still want to do brand marketing. We still want customers to see imagery. Now, maybe the image is on YouTube and not on TV. It's still video. And actually, YouTube gives you a whole bunch of different avenues to connect with customers in different forms of video than we could do in a 50-second or a 30-second or a 60-second TV ad in the past. And then, of course, you've got to go to the other side of the equation. You've got to get good at performance marketing, because you're going to get a natural amount of traffic, but there's going to be a business case which says it's worth me spending some money on performance marketing to bring customers in. And then you've got to get good at figuring out what's the right mass for that. Is it a transaction basis? Is it a customer lifetime value? Is it an acquisition lens? Is it a retention lens? So I think we're on a good journey on trying to figure that out. The key for us, though, is let's not forget who we are. We're not trying to be the next tech company. What we're trying to be is the next evolution of Kmart and keep the best of who we were in this next reinvention, but bring this technology capability to amplify us even further.
And if you're going to share some wisdom to those who are close to making their next move to become a managing director or a CEO, what's been, I don't know, maybe one or two things which really struck you or stood out for you, which maybe we just weren't anticipating?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say, first of all, paranoia is your friend. I know that sounds a little dark. But the more you anticipate what can go wrong, the more you can figure out what you need to do up front. And I think when you look at it from a development, I mean, anybody who's knocking on the door of becoming a CEO has clearly been super successful. right? And they've found ways to perform to a high standard to be in that consideration set. So they're clearly very, very capable people to get to that position. Maybe there's the odd one that isn't, but let's say on average, right, that's certainly the case. Yep. You've still got so many holes, right? There's so many things you don't know. So it's constantly having this view about, okay, well, I might be good at these things. What else do I not know? So if I think about my previous boss of Guy Russo, he and I are very different leaders. He tackles things in a very different way, but super successful in the way that he does it. And so one of his great strengths was his ability to connect and communicate with large populations of people. He was extraordinarily good at it. And so when I came into the role, I knew that was a gap for me. And so I had two choices. I could either try and replicate what Guy did, which would mean I was a second-rate version of Guy, which wouldn't be great for the organisation, or I find a way that I can do it in my way that gets the same outcome. But what it taught me was there's something I need to be good at here, which unless I can find a way to figure that out, it's going to be a struggle. So as an example, when I first got into the role, I really made it a mission to be really good at the store visit.
Oh, right.
Now whether as soon as I say that, I wonder what some of the store managers would say, whether I got that right or not. But anyway, so I spent, in the first 3 months, I made it the mission I wanted to get to every zone in the country. So each state has zones. So every zone, I wanted to spend time with every zone manager and basically get to all the stores. And I wanted to figure out, how do I do a really good visit that's my visit? That's the way I do it. Yeah, anyway, I went through that and I tried a few things out, and you know what, some didn't work. I came out of some of the visits thinking that was a disaster. You know, I didn't get that right. And then after a while, I figured it out. I figured out, you know what, the visits are about. The visits are not about me. The visits are about the team. This is the MD of the organisation who's turning up. And this is a big day for a lot of the store teams, because it might be that they see the managing director once every 5 years.
Yeah.
When you've got that many stores, you just don't get to every store frequently. So if you walk out of that store visit with the team feeling bad, you've got to wait 5 years to make them feel better.
Yeah.
That doesn't make for high performance. And so I came out of it thinking, you know what, I've got to make the team feel good about what they do, because they have an incredibly important job of what they're doing every day. Equally, I've got to learn. Go back to one of my missions in the job is I've got to keep on learning and understanding what's happening. So I just made it my mission to make them feel valued and learn. And once I had that clarity, then I found I got the engagement. It's a different form of engagement because we were like an in-conversation versus a much more, an emotional connection, if you like.
Yeah.
But it still left a lasting impression and it still had value. So going back to this question around how do you get ready, or when do you know if you're ready? You're never ready. You just have this paranoia about where the gaps are as a leader, and then I think you can put yourself in the best position you possibly can to make a go of it when you get into the role.
Are you accessible as a leader? Do I hear that about you? Or
Yes and no, I'd say now. I've become a group managing director versus a managing director of a business.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't anticipate when I got into the managing director job was actually how much of the time is not within my control.
Yeah.
I had more time when I was the chief operating officer, which I didn't anticipate. I had more flexibility about choosing what I did when. But, you sort of have to do results calls. You sort of have to do board meetings. There's quite a lot of those things which just come up, which means that you don't have to be really ruthless with time.
Yeah.
And I am so ruthless with time now, because otherwise I would just not go to bed. I'd not see my family and I'd have no time for myself, and I'd end up being an awful managing director. And there'd be 50,000 people with all the offices and all the stores. Do I feel like I'm getting to all of them enough? Absolutely not. I don't. But what I now have is I have awesome leaders running these businesses who can.
Yeah.
So to a degree, I've had to delegate some of that accessibility to other leaders just because of the nature of the role that I'm now in. But I always encourage my team, call me, text me, email me. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to make contact. And where I sit in the office when I'm in the Kmart office in Mulgrave is on level 3. You come out of the lifts and there's a pod right outside of the lifts. That's where I sit. I'm like right on the main walkway. It's a nightmare for doing work. Because then it's like, oh, hello, Ian. Hello. But it doesn't mean that when I'm around and in the office, which is not as often as I'd like either.
Yep.
It does mean that people can connect. I think feeling like people can connect with you is important. A business like ours, we're ordinary people trying to run a big business. And so keeping connected at a human level is important.
So what's the message, Ian? Ultimately, it's all about people, isn't it?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. If I look at it through the CEO lens or the MD lens, and once you get to a certain scale, your job is really, my job's two things. You've got to have the right strategy. Is the company focused on the right topics? Are the teams, the leaders focused on the right questions? So there is without doubt, are we focused on the right stuff? I get the privilege of seeing so much external information because I'm the ambassador for the business in so many external forums. Yeah. So I generally get a lens on the market or on the competitive landscape, which perhaps others do not. I've got to make sure I bring that in and that informs the strategy. Then it's people. Because I can't do it. I can't do all the detail right here. And for most of us who came up through a technical discipline versus a store discipline,
yep.
In our business, you got promoted by being good at something technical, and then you manage one person, and the way you manage them was by telling them exactly what to do. And then you got a team of people, and you pretty much told them what to do as well. At some point, it changes, and you've actually got to think about, well, how do I create the right framework? How do I create the right culture? How do I create the right parameters? How do I create the right support networks? How do I create the right development in order that we give each of these leaders and each of these teams every ability to take accountability and to do an excellent job. So how much of my job's people? 60, 70%?
In 3-4 years' time, 5 years' time, depending on what you've got to present, as you say, to the board, you're at 10 billion coming up to those numbers. What's it going to be in 3 and 5 years' time?
Yeah, I'm scared to put a number out there in case I get held to it by my boss.
Yep.
But, we've been growing consistently for a long period of time. I see so much opportunity for our business. There's opportunity within Australia and New Zealand, which we're already a significant market share. There's even bigger opportunity globally.
Yeah, okay.
So, if you think about, we develop these products. We're a product company as much as we are a retailer. 85% of what we sell is now our own developed product. And then we compete against the world's retailers in Australia and New Zealand. So you think about how many of the global retailers participate in our markets, and yet we're only offering it to 30 million people. And how many billions exist in the globe? So you stand back and look at that and you say, we've got to figure out how to get this product to other customers around the world. So we started on that journey. We're going to open up with a retailer in Canada in March.
Yep.
Not this month, we're in March, so later this month.
Yep.
That's going to be quite a meaningful anchor offer that gets into that market. We've been speaking with retailers in Europe in the last 3 months, again, to bring our product to the European markets, whether it's in the UK, France, or other European countries. And I think there's going to be opportunities elsewhere. So if I look at it through that lens, why can't this number be 20 billion in 5 or 10 years' time? We have the offer, we have the product, we have the opportunity. It's now up to us to figure out the how.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I agree.
When you finally call it a day, Ian, and get up from that little pod and say, got to go, thanks for all the fun, what's going to be the legacy?
I think the first thing when I came into the role, I think you touched on this question earlier, when I came in, growth was my mission. We had grown profit as a company. We'd gone from being an unprofitable business to a profitable one. But our revenue growth hadn't been that much. It was pretty modest. And so a lot of the story in the business at the time was turnaround. And my mission was to make this a growth business. So we changed all the language internally to growth on the way through. And you can tell we've achieved that so far in that we doubled the size of the business.
Yeah.
And a material number, like 4 billion of sales in the Australian market, is quite a lot of extra sales to go find. My mission when I hang up my boots is the growth agenda remains.
Okay.
Right. This cannot be seen as a mature business that's done really well, but it's at its peak. And whilst Ian was there, it was great. But you know what? This is going to be a plateau now. That would be a fail for me. So my mission, whenever I hang up my boots, is the trajectory and the opportunity is really clear, and the opportunity for the business to go to even greater heights. And this actually was just a platform for the next level of growth. That would be the legacy I'd love to leave.
And Ian, if you're looking back at that young gentleman with the tennis racket in his hand, giving it his best shot, what advice would you give him now?
Yeah, don't stress too much when you get the wrong job. It's funny. I never thought I was that rash, but when I look back on it, I realise I probably was on the way through. The one thing I would constantly give advice around is learn. And if you're young in your career and you're not learning fast enough, it should be vertical. I feel like I'm learning more now than I ever have. So my learning curve is still like that, right? And you see people get into roles and they start to plateau. It's like, get out of there. Go do something else, because you know there's so much to figure out, and it's fun to figure it out. Right? It's enjoyable. I feel super privileged and fortunate to have had the career that I've had. And clearly, I've had ups and downs. I've been made redundant twice on the journey, and fired a couple of times. So it's not like it's always going to be smooth sailing on the way through. But opportunities come along, and you keep rocking up. Sooner or later, you get lucky, and someone took a chance on me to put me into Officeworks.
Yeah.
As we told earlier, into a role where, as we talked about, I had 2 out of the 3 ingredients. Those things happen, and you've got to jump and take the risk. Equally, I could have said, I don't know retail.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the wrong role for me. Maybe this won't work out. Maybe I won't take that step. So I would encourage people to take risks. It's never as grave as you think it is when you are taking that risk, because if it goes wrong, you take the next gig and you get the next job. And see where the world takes you.
On that, Ian, thanks very much for joining us today.
No, thanks, Greg. Thought I enjoyed chatting.
You've been listening to No Limitations.